Good day and welcome to Big Bad Tech. I'm instructor Jim Pytel, and today's topic of discussion is wind turbine electric pitch systems. Our objective is to examine the electric pitch systems found on some modern industrial wind turbines. We'll identify the purpose, examine the hardware, and discuss their function in normal operation and emergency conditions. This lecture presumes the viewer has watched the Introduction to Industrial Wind Turbines, Wind Turbine Hydraulic Systems, Yaw and Rotor Brakes, and Wind Turbine Yaw Systems lectures, all available at the Big Bad Tech channel. The same housekeeping rules cited in the aforementioned lectures apply to this same lecture. Notably, it's presumed the viewer brings with them a necessary foundation in electromechanical technology and an understanding that this lecture must necessarily limit itself to a simplified representation of an electric pitch system and will not explore manufacturer-specific implementations for every turbine that ever has or ever will be constructed. Related to this qualification, we'll explore only general representations of the decisions made by the controller rather than real-world programmed instructions. Long story short, always consult the operations manual for the specific turbine of interest. This being said, you should find some commonalities between the simplified electric pitch system as represented in this lecture and most modern industrial wind turbines. Let us begin. Viewers will recall that the act of pitching rotates the blades relative to the hub, which changes the shape of the airfoil exposed to moving wind, thus influencing the amount of mechanical power transferred to the main shaft, thus influencing the electrical power output by the generator. Generators operate at peak efficiency inside a given rotational speed range, and it is largely the responsibility of the pitch system to keep rotational speed inside that range despite variations in wind speed. Beyond maximizing generator output, the pitch system also serves as the primary means of decelerating the rotor in the event of a shutdown or emergency conditions. Pitching the blades such that they spill air is known as aerodynamic braking, and once significantly decelerated below a predetermined rotational speed, the rotor hydraulic brake can soft brake the rotor and once brought to a standstill, hold it in place. This lecture will not explore the admittedly fascinating but ultimately unnecessary details of aerodynamics and will limit itself to this simple and effective real-world experiment. On the drive to class tomorrow, I want you to stick your hand out of the window of your car, making sure not to hit any trees, pedestrians, telephone poles, mailboxes, or other cars, and hold your hand at two different extremes. One at 90 degrees so your hand slices cleanly through the wind, and again straight up and down at 0 degrees. There's an obvious difference in the amount of force that's transferred to your arm between the two different orientations. This is pitch control. When the blade is held at 90 degrees such that it slices cleanly through the wind, a minimal amount of force is transferred to the hub. When the blade is held at increasingly aggressive pitch angles, an increasing amount of force is transferred to the hub. Wind turbines are no different. Inside the hub, the pitch system feathers or changes the angle of attack of the blades such that they capture or shed more or less incoming wind power, thereby aerodynamically regulating the speed of the main shaft, thus influencing electrical power output. The blades are attached to the hub using a slewing bearing, similar to that encountered between the nacelle and tower, allowing the blade and hub to move relative to one another. As we learned in the wind and water power lecture, a wind turbine power curve looks something like this. At the cut-in speed, when the turbine is first capable of exporting usable power, to the rated speed, that speed which a turbine reaches its rated output, the usable power output increases substantially given the cubic velocity term. Below the cut-in speed, the wind turbine doesn't bother pitching the blades since it would be useless to do so and holds them at 90 degrees. Between the cut-in to the rated speed, the turbine sets the pitch angle of the blades such that they intercept the maximum amount of incoming power. Depending upon the aerodynamic profile of the blades employed, you might observe a pitch angle of, let's say, 5 to 6 degrees from the cut-in speed to the rated speed. This being said, there's a practical limit to the capacity and lifespan of the mechanical and electrical components comprising the turbine, and beyond the rated speed, the turbine starts taking active measures to protect itself and ensure its longevity. This manifests itself as the turbine flatlining output at the nameplate rating at speeds above the rated speed and below the cutout speed. Well, the principal means of regulating output is by pitching the blades such that they progressively shed more and more wind input. Presuming the rated speed occurs at 12 meters per second, you might see the turbine hold the pitch angle at around 10 degrees for 14 meters per second, 15 degrees for 16 meters per second, maybe 20-ish degrees for 18 meters per second, and maybe 25-ish degrees for 20 meters per second, again where these pitch angles are dependent upon the aerodynamic profile of the blades employed. At speeds above the cutout speed, the turbine effectively ceases production by aerodynamically braking the rotor with an extreme blade pitch angle of 90 degrees, such that lift forces of the wind cease being transferred to the hub. Long story short, pitch control regulates how much wind power input is converted to electrical power output. Additionally, pitch angle is the single most influential property when it becomes necessary to decelerate a moving rotor. Two types of pitch systems are regularly employed in modern industrial wind turbines: electrical and hydraulic. We'll explore hydraulically pitched turbines in greater detail in later lectures, but here's a summary of their hardware and general operational principle as a means of comparison to today's topic of discussion: electrically pitched turbines. A hydraulically pitched turbine uses a single double-acting hydraulic cylinder, or if the blades are sufficiently massive, a pair of double-acting hydraulic cylinders working in coordination to change the pitch angle of the blade. Pivoting mounts allow the linear extension and retraction of the cylinder rod to change the rotational angle of the blade, such that when extended, the blade is pitched forward, and conversely, when retracted, the blade is pitched back. In the event a hydraulically pitched turbine loses power, a hydraulically pitched turbine uses pressurized fluid stored in an accumulator to pitch the blades to a feathered position and decelerate the rotor. An electrically pitched turbine, the topic of today's lecture, in contrast, uses an internally toothed slewing bearing, similar to the yaw ring, and a motor-driven gearbox and pinion gear. The motor turns in one direction, the blade is pitched forward, and when the motor turns in the other direction, the blade is pitched back. In the event of an emergency, an electrically pitched turbine also needs to pitch the blades to a feathered position to decelerate the rotor, only rather than relying on the stored energy of an accumulator, it relies on an uninterrupted power supply, or UPS, and batteries to do so. We'll significantly expand upon this basic description in this particular lecture. Before doing so, it's probably worth a moment over time to refresh our understanding of basic primary and pilot level motor control components and batteries. You'll recall we did a mini review of motor control in the aforementioned wind turbine yaw systems and discussed fuses, circuit breakers, contactors, overloads, and reversing starters. Let's pick up where this mini review left off. We'll begin with a brief exploration of the different types of motors you might find in an electric pitch system and the means used to control them. You recall from the Motor Family Tree lecture, available at the Big Bad Tech channel, motors are actuators that convert electrical power input into rotational mechanical power output. Electrical power comes in many forms, and there are motors that prefer DC and those that prefer three-phase AC. Left unexplored are the pieces of garbage that prefer single-phase AC. DC motors make a great actuator of choice for electrically pitched wind turbine systems because the backup system, which we'll explore in greater detail in a moment, is battery-based. Batteries are inherently DC in nature, therefore a DC motor controller necessitates no power electronics intermediary to interface with this style of backup. A DC motor has two parts: a rotating armature and a stationary field. The range of available DC motors differ in how the armature and field are electrically configured. There exist permanent magnet DC motors, separately excited DC motors, series wound DC motors, shunt wound DC motors, two types of compound wound DC motors, and finally there also exists an entirely different style of DC motor called a brushless DC motor. This motor configuration actually has more in common with synchronous three-phase AC motors than it does DC motors, and only for the purposes of completeness have I included it in this DC grouping. All these types of DC motor configurations produce different speed and torque profiles, which may make one configuration more suitable for one application than another. I'm hesitant to make a general proclamation about this because manufacturers can and do offer differently configured pitch systems. However, since pitch motors need to exert high torque at low speeds, if the pitch system employs DC motors, most likely you'll encounter series wound DC motors and or compound wound DC motors, which you'll note also include a series field winding. An identifying characteristic of a series field is high torque at low speeds. We'll explore the details of different DC motor configurations in later lectures. However, for the purposes of this lecture, one of the more important aspects of DC motors is directional and speed control. As a general summary, the polarity of the armature with relation to the field determines rotational direction of a DC motor. Customarily, the polarity of the field winding is kept constant, and the polarity of the armature is reversed to change direction. One way of accomplishing this is through the use of an H-bridge style controller. A simplified representation of an H-bridge controller includes 4 switches and 2 vertical pairs, and the armature of the DC motor forming the horizontal bridge of the H, hence the name H-bridge. When switches 1 and 4 close, the armature experiences voltage polarity positive to negative, left to right, and rotates in one direction, and the blade is pitched forward. Conversely, when switch 2 and 3 close, the armature experiences voltage polarity positive to negative, right to left, and rotates in the other direction, and the blade is pitched back. Additionally, by varying the duty cycle of the switches, one can control the speed of the DC pitch motor. Switches close for a longer period than they are open result in higher average voltage being applied, thus increased speed. Conversely, switches open for a longer period than they are closed result in lower average voltage being applied, thus decreased speed. We'll examine DC motors and H-bridge controllers in greater detail in later lectures. DC motors are not the only type of electrical actuator that you might find in electrically pitched wind turbines, and you may encounter turbines that use three-phase AC squirrel cage induction motors. Again, since pitch mechanisms often necessitate high torque at low speeds, these motors might be design D motors, or at least motors that favor the lower speed, higher torque applications. Importantly, three-phase AC motors necessitate a power electronics device intermediary between the DC battery bank and the controller known as an inverter. The inverter's function is to take the DC output of the battery bank and convert it to three-phase AC, usable by the three-phase AC squirrel cage induction motor. You recall the phase sequence of a resultant three-phase AC determines a rotational direction, such that when L1, L2, L3 is applied to the motor, it rotates in one direction and the blade is pitched forward. Conversely, when L2, L1, L3 is applied to the motor, it rotates in the other direction and the blade is pitched back. Additionally, recall excitation frequency determines rotational speed, such that higher frequencies result in quicker rotation and lower frequencies result in slower rotation. Regardless of the choice of motor, DC or three-phase AC, these motors do not typically directly interface with the internally toothed pitch bearing, but rather do so through a step-down gearbox intermediary, which converts the high-speed, low-torque output of the motor to low-speed, high-torque mechanical power suitable for the pitching application. Lastly, pitch motors, regardless of style, also incorporate braking mechanisms to hold the blade in specific positions. Most of the time, these are spring-applied, electrically released friction brakes mounted on the non-drive end. You'll recall we examined these devices in great detail in the friction brakes lecture, available at the Big Bad Tech channel. As a summary of their operation, when de-energized, a spring forces a high-friction braking surface against a disc, which locks the shaft in place. When energized, the solenoid retracts the brake pad and allows the shaft to rotate. When commanded to move to a specific position, the pitch system releases the brakes, energizes the motor in the desired direction at a desired speed, and the blade rotates. When it arrives at the desired position, the motor is de-energized and the brakes applied. Now that we've briefly reviewed the primary electrical actuators found in electrically pitched systems, let's briefly review some of the pilot-level electrical components you might find coordinating their action. As you're no doubt aware, one of the central principles of industrial control is the division between primary and pilot-level power. Primary components in an electrical pitch system are obviously the motors that use high voltage to do the actual work of pitching the massive blades forward and back. Pilot-level devices, in contrast, are low-power devices like switches and sensors or transducers used to direct and control the function of the system. At a basic level, high-power primary devices only function at the request of low-power pilot-level signals. You recall switches are digital devices that can exist in one of two mutually exclusive states, deactivated or activated. For example, consider a normally open limit switch that, when unperturbed and not struck by some physical object, sends a 0-volt signal to the control system. If, however, the actuator attached to the limit switch is struck by some physical object, the normally open limit switch closes and sends a 24-volt signal to the control system. In this capacity, the limit switch offers a clear and defined transition from one state to another. Is something there, or is something not there? Oftentimes, limit switches employed in modern industrial wind turbine electric pitch systems might come in two pairs, utilized to mark two operational regions. The first pair might mark the upper and lower limits of rotation at 0 and 90 degrees. Operated inside this region marked by the 0 and 90 limit switches, everything proceeds as usual. We'll explore how this first set of limit switches is used in a moment. The second pair of limit switches are in effect backups to the first set should this initial set fail to function. Limit switches, after all, are electromechanical devices, and actuator arms and the tags they are intended to interact with can and do break off, get twisted at weird angles, get stuck, or covered in goo. If the blade pitches past the first set without detection and strikes a member of the second set guarding the border of no man's land, the system can signal a pitch error or a fault and take appropriate action to correct it. Sensors or transducers, in contrast, measure something and output a voltage or current signal proportional to the measured quantity. Wind turbine pitch systems often make use of a type of incremental rotary encoder, known as an AB encoder that uses two tags, A and B, slightly offset from one another, such that when sensors on a shaft receive A, then B, it means that the shaft is going clockwise. If, however, the sensors receive B, then A, it means the shaft is going counterclockwise. Beyond rotational direction, AB encoders also include a third signal, Z. You'd think it'd be C, but it isn't. It's Z. The Z or index signal happens once per revolution and serves as a way of determining absolute position from the last full revolution. The number of AB pulses since the last index signal can be used to determine rotational position with a desired degree of accuracy. Common implementations of incremental rotary encoders on industrial wind turbines might take the form of a toothed gear that meshes with a pitch ring or the pinion gear and rotates a specific number of turns per full turn. Some turbine manufacturers use more than one incremental encoder, one in the pitch bearing and one in the pinion gear. One is primary, one is backup, and can signal a pitch error if the two systems disagree. Now that we've taken a look at the actuators and pilot elements like limit switches and incremental rotary encoders found in a pitch system, let's discuss how they're used to manage blade angle. One of the elements critical to incremental rotary encoders is their incremental, i.e. not absolute nature, meaning that an incremental encoder only knows how many turns it's gone since it was last energized. This means the controller only knows the true angular position of the blade when it is established with reference to known points. Conveniently enough, the first set of limit switches marking 0 and 90 degrees serve this purpose. Often a turbine making use of electrically pitched blades prior to actually pitching them will purposely rotate the blades in one direction and then the next until it strikes 90 and then 0, establishing the upper and lower bounds and setting them as reference. From these references, absolute angles can be determined. If it takes 200 turns to go from 90 to 0, 100 turns is 45 degrees, and so on. This 90 degree forward, 90 degree back is kind of like a wake-up check to make sure the turbine knows where the blades are at in case they shifted while it was idle. This pre-pitched check also makes sure that the actuators, gearboxes, and backup system can function as intended prior to going into production mode. If any system fails this initial check, an error can be generated and appropriate action taken to rectify the problem.